So we are headed south on 28, and we're getting ready to get off on 29 south towards Gainesville. And when we do, there's a little gas station on the right-hand side. It's called Sunoco. And what I'd like for you to do, if you're leading the event, if you're driving the truck and trailer over to the event, is to pull in there and grab a couple bags of ice. You'll find in the back of the trailer there's a cooler with several packages of water in there, and that's to keep the volunteers cool during the evening. You can stop in here, grab some ice. If you keep those receipts and get those to me, either scan them in and email them to me, or you can just drop them off on Sunday morning to me. Then you can grab. I can get you reimbursed real easily. So here's the Sunoco right here, and then instead of turning in there right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going straight, and I'm going to go down here to Trinity Parkway, and I'm going to take a right on Trinity Parkway and head over to the Trinity Center, which is where the Starlight Cinema event is. So here we go. Alright, so we're going to be pulling in over here at the Trinity Center. There's a couple different entrances. You want to make sure that you go in the second entrance. The first entrance is right here off Wood Meadow Way, and that's where your volunteers are going to come in. But what you want to do is you want to come into this first entrance right here. You're going to take a right. There's going to be cones blocking it off, and you just want to go ahead and stop right here, move the cones, and pull on in. If anybody says anything to you, you're not getting the shot. If anybody says anything to you, you just want to tell them that you're working with New Life and you're here to do the kids stuff, and they'll let you right in. Then you want to turn in between these, this second entrance between these two islands, and as you're pulling in, you just want to go ahead and get your moon bounces and your tarps out. Once you pull in, you're going to pull in through this entrance right over here, and as you're coming in, you're going to see in this parking lot right over here, you're going to see that the movie screens are set up. There's two really large movie screens that will be set up over there. Here's how I'd like to have you parked when you park the truck, just so that the trailer and the truck are kind of shown off a little bit. Obviously, the truck that we're using this year isn't the ice cream truck, because the ice cream truck has some engine troubles, but the trailer needs to be shown off as much as possible, and so you're going to park right like this. And then if you're looking, the next set of parking spaces, you're going to see where we're going to put the moon bounces. Right over here is where the castle moon bounce needs to go, as close to that island as possible. And then right over here is where you want the frog moon bounce to go, pretty much as close to that island as you can get it. You want as much space in between these two as possible, because you're going to have lines of kids lined up, and you want them to be able to kind of snake around. This next set of parking spaces right here is where you want to set up the games. We're going to use one of these parking spots to house each game. And so what you'll do is you'll just set the game up at the end of the parking spot, and then we've got some chalk in the trailer, and you can pull that out and just draw a couple lines, successive lines coming out towards the end of the parking spot. For the kids that, as they get older, you can move them further out so that it's a little bit harder for them. There's 4 different games that we have available. 2 are what we call skee ball, and they have progressively smaller holes as you go up higher on the game. And those are the first 2 that I would set out if I were running the event, because those are the ones that are the easiest for the most kids to play. And so those are the first 2 that I would start out with. And then, like I said, as you get more volunteers, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set out more games. There's 4 total. There's a baseball man, so he's got like a catcher's mitt, and there's a hole in it. And then there's a football man as well. So just use each one of these individual parking spots for one of those games. And once you've got enough volunteers, you want to have 2 volunteers for each game. Once you get up to 3, you can actually put 3 people in the front, and they'll hand the kids the bean bags, and then 2 people in the back, and they can retrieve the bean bags. We bought bean bags this year as an improvement from last year, because last year we had balls and they were going everywhere, and it took a really long time for each kid to play the game. Right over here next to this island, you want to set up your frog moon bounce, and here's what you're going to want to do. As you pull in, you're going to want to kick the moon bounce out of the back, and when I say kick, you're really going to have to kind of manhandle it. When you're setting up, you need at least 2 men to get the moon bounces out of the back, and each one has its own tarp to go underneath of it. That way it doesn't get worn down by the asphalt as easily on the bottom, and we don't develop holes. So you're going to want to kick the frog moon bounce out, and you want to get it as close to the top of the as close to the top of the parking spots here as possible. You want to set out your tarp and then roll the moon bounce out that way, because what it's going to do is it's going to have the entrance right here, and then you'll have the back end, which is where you actually attach it to our blower at the back end. And so you're going to want to just roll it out, and you'll be able to have the whole thing rolled out. You can unfold it on top of the tarp, and that's real easy. And right over here, you're going to want to put the castle moon bounce as close to this island right over here as you can get it, because you want to have these two as spaced out as you possibly can, because what's going to end up happening is you're going to have lines of kids, and they need to kind of snake so that they don't interfere too much with the games over there. But you're going to have lines of kids. Typically last year we saw lines up to about 45 to 50. And you're going to want to do the exact same thing that you did with the frog moon bounce for the castle moon bounce. Here's what you need to know when you're running the moon bounces. The longer the lines get, obviously the shorter the amount of time we want the kids in the moon bounces, so that we can cycle more and more kids in and out of the moon bounces. You're going to want to have probably a 3-minute maximum time frame for having kids in the moon bounces, and then at the very, very least you don't want to go below 2 minutes, because then the kids aren't really getting a whole lot of time in there. But I would start out at 3 minutes, and as the lines get longer, slowly back it down to a 2-minute time frame for the kids being in there. All the kids need to take their shoes off before they get in. And another thing that you need to remember is the size of the kids that are jumping together. You want to keep the kids jumping together with kids that are their size. So big kids like me, you don't want to let them in with little kids like this. And in fact, you really don't want to let anyone that's my size or bigger into the moon bounces at all. It just ends up becoming too much of a roughhousing thing, and the moon bounces aren't designed to have kids that weigh over 150 pounds in there. You have to drastically reduce the number of kids that are allowed in. Kids my size, you need to have maybe 3, at the most 4 in there at a time. You know, for little kids, you can have 6 to 7 in there at a time, and you want to make sure that they all get in at the same time, they all come out at the same time. So you have to be very firm when running a moon bounce. If the kids start roughhousing, you've got to make them stop. There's no flips allowed, there's no pushing each other down or anything like that. So you've got to keep a pretty good eye on these kids, because they're going to want to have you know, some roughhouse kind of fun, and that's an insurance liability for us, and so we want to avoid that at all costs. Feel free to raise your voice to them. If you have to, yell at them, and if you need to, feel free to kick them out. And it sounds harsh, but the reality is, if someone were to get hurt, they could bring a suit against New Life.